Yeah, and what do you I mean? There's been a recent, I've noticed, focus from a lot of different people on this idea of, a haunted universe or a universe which is more populous than we're familiar with thinking of it. And I know reading Saint Porphyrios, it was very interesting to me. There's a story where someone is talking to him and he's asking him is there life on other planets? Are there aliens? And he says, why are you even asking me about life on other planets? Do you know just how much stuff there is around us right now that you have no
That's
idea
hilarious.
exists? And I just thought that was so interesting because Saint Porphyrios is one of those saints who has, you might say, relatively unique spiritual gifts in that he was able to see lots of different things in the material world and the non-material world, which aren't accessible to us or even
Yeah.
to a lot of other saints. Um, and that was just fascinating to me in terms of this new kind of excitement, a relatively new excitement about a more populous universe. So
Yeah.
when we talk about fairy tales, obviously we're talking in part about fairies.
Yeah.
So do you think that at what point do we say that um, there is kind of a genuine concrete referent to beings that we might call fairies?
Yeah. So let me back up a little bit and try to, I think, kind of contextualize what's happening in terms of this new interest in, like you said, a more populous universe. One of the things that happened, of course, in 19th century materialism was the evacuation of agency in the cosmos uh, as superstition, right? The idea that every time you see agency in the cosmos or that you see other consciousness acting in the cosmos, um, it's just superstition and projection. That's the type of word they use. But that type of thinking, this materialist type of thinking, was never didn't come to the point of trying to account for our consciousness and our agency. And they were just ignoring it as this kind of blind spot from a point of view where they looked on the world with that agency and consciousness, but then used their reason and their agency and consciousness to evacuate the rest of the universe of agency and consciousness. And so I think that we've come to a point where even a lot of scientists and a lot of, especially scientists that study cognition, they're realizing that this is a ridiculous position to stand in. It's a ridiculous position to ignore the categories of consciousness when we're literally using those categories to evacuate the cosmos of consciousness. So I think that's the point where we've come to, where now there are people, very reasonable, people that aren't Christian, that are atheists or secular or all kinds of people that are willing and in some ways realize that using categories of agency and consciousness to understand certain phenomena is actually more useful than the kind of cold analytical description that they're used to, especially for understanding social movements, for understanding kind of large scale transformations, using things like agency to explain those. What people use the term egregore, they use different, they use things like emergence, words like emergence. In some ways, it doesn't matter to us at the outset what word they use, but they're noticing something like intelligent patterns kind of coming back and manifesting themselves on the world. So once you've crossed that threshold, and this is the funny thing that a lot of people don't realize, once they cross that threshold and they ride that out consistently, they will find themselves once again in a world of jinns and fairies and intermediary beings. And I think that you're seeing a lot of people talk about re-enchantment. You have Rod Dreher. I've just read an article by Mary Harrington today that tries to talk about re-enchantment, people taking mushrooms, talking about all these beings that they meet and everything. And I think that that's the future. If you want to know what the future is, that's it. But it's a scary, it's not that great of a future. It's scary because without order, without the logos ordering that world for us, then it's a very scary and dangerous world to walk through. So I think that fairy tales are a way to help people reaccustom themselves with these types of patterns.